Hello and welcome to the People Performance Podcast with me, Tracy Roberts. And today I am joined by a special guest, Rachel Young. How are you?
I'm great, Tracy. Thank you. Lovely to be back connected with you. Can't wait for today.
Really excited to speak to you. And I guess for our viewers and our listeners, part of the reason that we've got Rachel on, other than the fact that she's so extremely exciting to speak to, is that she was lucky enough to win a place at our leadership retreat this year, and she's absolutely buzzing.
Yes, 100%
excited about. So part of this is we're going to almost do a bit of a vlog of Rachel in the run-up to our retreat and during our retreat and after our retreat, just to share some experiences about what she's taken from it. And I guess maybe just summarise your experiences a little bit while we're there as well. But we also thought it was really important, if we're going to start to talk a little bit more about Rachel, that we kind of give her an opportunity to tell us a little bit more about herself and what her journey has been to getting here. I guess if you had to summarise to someone who didn't know you, what your kind of your life as you know, what's led you to this day in terms of your career and your experiences, how would you do it really simply?
Really simply, and looking back, I can see that I was put on this planet to get people moving. So that's where it comes from. My whole kind of ethos of why I get out of bed every morning is to get people moving. And I don't mean get up and swing a kettlebell. I just get them moving physically and mentally, because I can experience firsthand the impact that it's had on my life. And I want to share that with others so that, you know, we can enjoy life and not endure it. So was that simple enough?
I think that was super simple. And I think, for full disclosure, it's probably useful for people to know that you have been predominantly in a sector that I was in for many years. So that's why we kind of, our paths have crossed so many times, and totally resonate with that purpose. And I think for a lot of people, it'd be really good to be able to summarize their purpose as simply as that. I love the way that you put that there. So what was your first step into working within that sector, or working in how you shaped your career moving forward?
So just kind of, you know, University of Life and hindsight is such an interesting thing. I found that basically group exercise to me was theatre. Group exercise was the entertainment business. And that was, you know, I didn't realize it then, but that's how I was changing people's lives and getting moving. And that group exercise didn't have to be in a studio. It was group anything. So a group, indoor, outdoor, even walking or talking, even at that point. And that was kind of early days cutting my teeth in fitness first world. But I really am very much focused on everything I've ever done is all about people. I always put that, you know, you put your people first and you make money as a byproduct of that. That's how the business goes. And when I say put your people first, it's not your customer. You know, the most important people, whatever business you're in, to me, or my hallucination is your teams. So throughout my journey, as I kind of moved up the food chain, you know, in those days, I'm old, right? I've been in the industry for like 30 something years. So I've been around the block. And what I've really realized is if you just kind of invest in those people and manage teams and say, I wanted to know where my staff went at the weekends, what they did, what got them out of bed in the morning, where the kids went to school. And I cared. I really wanted to know that. And over time, I realized that, you know, I've got some incredible relationships globally where people trust me. And then making money is that, you know, like I said, the commercial side of it is a byproduct of all of that in the fitness space. But I think that anything that I would have done, whether it had not been in fitness, I'm pretty sure, 100% sure, it would have all come back to the getting people moving physically or mentally in whatever their roles were.
Yeah. And I think that's such a powerful reason to kind of be involved in a sector that you have been for the majority of your career. I think there's probably seen some challenges along the way, though. I mean, how have you seen that particular sector change in all that time? What do you think is the biggest shift that you've seen?
So, I'm passionate about the space, but I'm also really frustrated by it. So if you look, you know, over time, I personally start to look outside the sector, so more into health and well-being, let alone our main core element of the fitness world. But the passion and the desire to get more people moving is immense across the sector. So that's what, clubs are for. Yes, there's the commercial gains, but we're all at the annual events and the meetings of let's get more people more active more often, basically is the core. And I was saying to somebody, there was a big event this weekend, and I was saying to somebody there that when I first got into the fitness world, we had 12.5 of the population in the UK, 12.5% were a member of a gym. Okay. When I first started, 35 years later, we're now just on 16%. So we're in events and people are going, 16%, we're on 16%. And I'm going, not good enough. It's 35 years later. So if I continue on that trajectory, for us to actually have even hit some higher percentages, I'm going to be nearly 300 years old. So I guess, that's not good enough. So what I've seen changes, we have worked harder to collaborate. And I think as horrific as it was, COVID was a massive slap on the chops for us as a sector, and a wake-up call that we weren't being taken seriously. So when when businesses reopened, pubs opened before gyms. And we were like, oh my God, why aren't people coming to us? We weren't taken seriously. We were drop a dress size, new year, new you, 6 weeks to a six pack, all of that, and not, actually having a holistic approach to people. So I think the change that COVID brought was a wake up call to the clubs and the operators to stay in their lane and do what they do and do it really well.
Yeah.
And also to collaborate more. We're all in the same sandpit, so let's do it and do it really well. But there's still massive frustrations in that, Tracy. You still go to meetings where we're all the presentations are about driving change, driving community, driving engagement, and then everyone leaves and does nothing. We've almost gone full circle. We've gone from clubs with sort of pools, courts. It's been elite and a price point to enter. Middle market came in with my early days of the kind of the fitness first world. Massive growth in low cost gyms, high volume, low cost, which is basically offering more for less, which is fantastic because it just put exercise and activity on people's radars. Definitely. But then we've also seen as that's kind of grown, the rise in technology, the rise in health, well-being, and understanding the person as a whole. So I'm actually, it's actually pretty exciting talking, long length of life, quality of life, well-being. I get excited, Tracy, so please feel free to just wind me in.
No, I love to listen to it. And I think I really resonated with a few things there because I was, especially at the beginning of COVID, I was still in the sector and I can absolutely connect with a lot of those comments there. Some of the experience I had there was I had no value. Immediately, as soon as we went into lockdown, it was quite scary to realize how little people valued that element. We were like, we're part of someone's lives here. We're a huge part of keeping them healthy and keeping them going. And as soon as we went into lockdown, we had to work so much harder to nudge back into people's lives in a different way. And I found it quite scary. But I also found there was other people found fitness and health during COVID because certainly from a mind perspective, there were people who really felt the downside of not being around people, or actually some people were the other way around. They actually quite like the peace and quiet. I think I quite like the peace and quiet actually. So there's definitely been some major shifts and there's a lot of excitement still in that sector. So it's still lovely to hear you've got so much passion for it. But I know that you also do other bits and bobs that kind of sit just on the outside of that sector, or are additional things that you do within the sector that are not directly related to the roles that you've had. Most recently, business development and all those sorts of elements. What's the one role that stands out to you that has been, I don't know, has given you the most fire in your belly? Can you think of one specific?
Yeah, it's anything related to the people. So managing large teams as an operator, I've always been, well, until kind of more recently, on the operator side of the fence. So running clubs, kind of on a global basis. How do we make them the entertainment center? Going back to the group exercise thing. It's because a gym's a gym at the end of the day, but what makes a difference is the reception you get when you walk in the door, the fire in its belly, and the whole experience. Yeah, it's when you're with those people. So over time, I moved from, as the industry changed, I mean, you will know that went through a whole phase of, we've got to cut costs, let's rip out group exercise.
Oh, yeah. I was at the sharp end of that because I was managing your group exercise necessary for a company. So, yeah.
It's like, how do you take out the heart and soul of something? And it will last for a while. It'll be okay for a while, but people need to feel welcomed, get results, feel successful, be part of a community, or they're not going to come back, because exercise is hard. You get sweaty, it hurts, your makeup runs, it's not, you'll be smelly. So let's make it more fun and engaging. So looking at, again, kind of back to the COVID, looking around the outside of the sector, I looked into sports, mental health, and there was a real appetite you could see for collaboration, for people wanting to step over this bridge. So I thought, actually, I can help do this, because respect, very neutral. If I was a country, I'd be Switzerland. Okay, that's how I can stand. Like to be able to talk to everybody and want to go, actually, how do I bridge this gap without the operators going, oh my God, that's going to cost a fortune, or other people feeling intimidated. Yeah. So I think what was interesting there was, and there's kind of a point to this ramble, is that I had 4 or 5 different conversations over a period of time with mental well-being kind of experts, talking about actually the power of physical activity. And these conversations were, they were gold. They were absolutely gold, and they would be fantastic. And I was like, I'm going to help you do this. And I said to each person, I asked the same question to each of them at the end of it. And they were the experts in their region or their territory. And I said, it's brilliant what you're saying. It's clearly an appetite to drive change. How do you work out? Where do you work out? And the response from 4 out of the 5 was, oh my God, I don't do that. It's too intimidating. And it was a real shock for me. So on the 5th call, I did the same thing. Listen, there's a real appetite. We bridge the gap. And instead of saying, where do you work out? I said, how do you move? What do you do? And the response was, we'll go to Pilates on a Saturday. I've got a dog called Nigel, and me and my friend go horse riding. I'm making that up, but it was the real flag for me was language, as in fitness, movement, health, well-being, activity. That's what a big learning for me was how we position ourselves in terms of how we communicate to the different sectors, because actually the reality of mental well-being and the fitness space, we've moved slightly closer, but we're still a massive void. And as you said, the irony. My experience of moving from clubs into tech, into working with MyZone, was again as a bit of a mercenary. How can I get more people moving? And actually, when you've got a product where it's inclusive, it doesn't care how you move, it cares that you move. My mum could train next to a pro athlete and they both feel welcome. So that goes back to all my values of, getting more people moving. I don't care if you're a pro athlete or you're my mum. I want you to move with intent and feel great about it. So those things, I've gone off piece, but do remember the question. Those kind of things led me to, yes, looked on the periphery. I saw there was a gap to bridge. So I kind of put myself forward to be part of some kind of group. So was able to, very proud, to I sat on the inclusion group for Europe Active and chaired the group for some time, and really tried incredibly hard to make inclusion palatable. Because it can very much easily fall into the too hard bucket. So the skills I've learned over the years in terms of communication is actually has been super helpful. And that's helped me as a leader. It's helped me in the fitness space. It's helped me, not kick down. If a door's open, if it's slightly open, I'll keep pushing it to open more.
Yeah.
I'm not kick down a door because that turn people off. And maybe it's not right. And sometimes I'm criticized for, you've got to be more direct on that. I kind of don't, because I know the door will shut.
It's picking your moment, isn't it? And I think that's a skill as a leader. And I think, a lot of people don't like to say this, but I still say it. It's, being a female in leadership, it is slightly tougher sometimes. And we have to be careful of how we put ourselves across, because we are seen differently still in some eyes, and some ears hear what we say is aggressive. Whereas, in other rooms, that word wouldn't be used. So I totally appreciate that. That's something that's got to be a bit of a skill that you've honed over a period of time. And you've certainly had enough experience to be able to handle most rooms, right? But I'm sure you've still come across some difficult rooms, and you've probably equally learned from those too, right?
Yeah, 100%. Over the years, what I've realized, I look back and I didn't want to be part of a group because I wouldn't join a group. So over time, what I've realized is I've got a human library of just great humans that I know that I can connect each other. And I could say, Tracy, speak to Mary or speak to John. There's something. And I know, or that based on the trust and the relationships of knowing who Rachel is, that Tracy and John can have the conversation. And it's not about, hey, do you want to buy let me 10x your revenue?
I like that. And I think that's one of your key skills, is the networking element. And I guess it goes back to what you're saying there about people. It gives you energy, doesn't it? It's almost like it feeds you to have that human library available, but also the energy you get from, I guess, quickly processing in your brain how that person can help that person. And not everyone's wired like that. Do you think you're conscious of that, or do you think it's just something that happens for you?
I've been much more conscious of it recently because someone pointed it out, and it was I actually kind of looked and thought, okay, I really know this now, and there's no, maybe I didn't want to acknowledge it because I thought it was a bit arrogant.
Yeah,
but actually I've got great relationships and people trust me, and I'm going to use that to help the people. Going back full circle, I've experienced some incredible leaders who I've learned from. I've also been bullied to within an inch of my life, which I've learned from. And, when I think back to my early days, I remember it was Elaine Jobson, who was my boss, and proud to call her my friend, who I went into my first kind of review with her. I sat down and I, put my document on the table, and she got the document and pushed it to one side and said, "How are you doing?" I was thinking, shit, she's asking about me. When's the last time you worked out? When's the last time what are you reading? And that was a absolute shock that someone actually cared so much about the person as a whole. And I've taken that, and I because I do care about the people. I think, I got tangled up with Elaine Jobson because it absolutely made sense. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. I certainly believe in that. Even that.
Absolutely. You can still connect back with, we talk about this all the time here at T2, and Martin does it in one of his keynotes around the people who influenced him early in his career, and how he can very clearly tell you the things that they said and did, that a penny just dropped at that particular moment, and you went, I want that. I want to be like that. Or I haven't got that in abundance, so I need to try and bring that out as often as possible. It's the legacy you leave, isn't it? And I think it's important for a lot of leaders to do the right thing at the time. Not so many leaders put thought into the legacy they're going to leave behind them. I think people who really care about people do think about legacy. And I'm guessing that is probably something that maybe not consciously at the moment, but you probably do think about how you leave people and how you can change things. And I'm sure that
absolutely the impact on a conversation you have in anything have to add value. And even say to the teams that I've managed, if I ask you to do something and you don't understand why, and I can't answer why, then we're not doing it.
I think that's fair. And I think it also means that if you're considering the people around you all the time, you've generally you've got that self-awareness of how you can come across and how you can communicate. And that's a great example of that, actually. You know, maybe if I'm rushing in because I'm like led by my gut instinct a lot of the time and we can't strip this back together, then maybe that's the unwritten thing that, yeah, it's maybe an indication I need to think it through a little bit more and maybe you need to redirect me. But that actually the fact that you indicate that gives high levels of trust and like solid foundations and really good psychological safety. And I guess good leaders are great at that. They'll disarm you, you know, somewhat, but they'll also layer in some of those, the nods to when you can challenge and when you can, you know, ask another question or pause something sometimes. I've often worked with leaders who are not like that. And I'm wondering, you can definitely relate to that person, the first person that made an impact on you. Can you think, you don't need to name the person, but can you think of the one person early in your career that made you realize what you didn't want to be?
Yeah. The interesting thing about that, it's probably later on. Oh. So I didn't, it's not until you look back and realize, all of those skills that would probably make my teeth itch and not another seminar on this. That was gold. Then, you know, Elaine's focus on kind of culture and people was absolutely incredible. Then I moved onwards and all of my superpowers, I felt like I went into life. I went into other career opportunities that I thought would be incredible with my utility belts. Yeah. With all my little superpowers in them. But then would go to the sort of the new leader who took all the superpowers from me. And I would go, you don't need to do that. You don't need to plan that way. We need to organize it this way. This is how you do it. And it was so prescriptive. It was a bit of a shock for me. So I was like, oh, do I not? And then just caught up in the world and almost kind of question yourself. So I would always go if I could go back and talk to Rachel again, I would say, you know, stick to your values. You know what you stand for. And, you know, you can make a small impact. You might not be able to change the world. That's something I've learned kind of more recently with that. I want to make a difference. We're going to get more people moving, but sometimes you're in a space where you can't actually shift the dial because it's not your dial. It doesn't mean walk away, you know, and just give up on it. It means actually maybe you vote with your feet and go that actually this is not for me. And we don't keep pushing this, some kind of toxic cultures or poor environments.
Yeah. That's good advice, actually, because I think I like that expression. It's not your diet, it's not your dial, because it really resonates with me. Because when we go to speak to people at T2, quite often we'll try and make organizational change. You know, we'll be bringing some thought leadership in or some training in to help people shift their dial or turn their lever. And what you tend to find is you'll get those people who say, well, what difference will it make if we do it? Because we're just this tiny pocket in an organization. And I often have to have a similar conversation around pockets of sunshine. I say, well, what about if we create those pockets of sunshine and actually in that particular area alone, we've made a difference. And if we can create more of them, then things will be right around here. But it can be difficult when you see something big and you want to make the change. And the frustration is there because you know there's just some simple steps to move to get that right, to make your peace with. It's not your dial to turn. I think a lot of people could take that actually and apply that to where they are now, because organizational change is probably one of our biggest areas of work at the moment. We get so much questions around this, and I guess you've seen so much change over your years. And I guess one question for me, curious, have you ever seen a change initiative actually work?
Absolutely. And it's how the change is influenced. And you can get, people have to belong. They have to feel part of the strategy to move forwards. Now, if you execute the change correctly, where this is the strategy, right? This is where you fit. Let's talk that through. Not this is where you think you're going to be doing X, Y, Z. Got to get the buy-in. And then after that, once you've initiated it that way, you really do know clearly who's on your bus and who's not. Because I've looked after you, talked about this, how we can do this together, and actually it doesn't sit right. And maybe this isn't the place for you.
Yeah. And that's often a conversation we have. We refer to a couple of models, the Lippitt Noster models, around the 6 elements of change and how if one thing's missing, and to your point there, if you haven't got consensus or there's not an action plan, things fall apart. Part of that is that interpersonal awareness as well and understanding, isn't it? But the other thing we talk about a lot is the change house model. And we talk about people who can be really quickly in acceptance, which is great. That's where you want people. But you can also have people at the exit lounge, like you say, where they've made that realization that the shift is too much for them or it's not going to suit them. And the discussion we always end up having there is, well, how would you make the decision to save someone or not? And sometimes that tough conversation actually is the best conversation to have. But the reason I ask around that is because for most people, they can really resonate with something that they've tried to implement in an organization they've been in. And some of it's been out of their hands, and they can single-handedly just take one view of this and go, this is not going to work. And it's because some of those fundamentals are just not in place, or people feel like change is being done to them, if that makes sense. So is that something that you've observed?
Yeah, that's the one. It's that change is being done to you. And it's also that there's black and white, but there's also a little bit in the middle of the human element. And that's the thing that you can't lose sight of. You can make a business look successful by, a massive cull, and the balance sheet and your P&L will look very, very good for a while. Is that sustainable? Not really. Is it the right thing to do? Maybe in certain elements of it, but not, you've got to make sure that all of the people are, kind of looked after on the route. Yeah, I've had such an interesting journey. God, I sound like I'm tapping out. I hope there's more to come. Because on that road as well, the Human Library, I've been able to kind of speak at events. I've made some great connections. And one of my key learnings was, and I think this is important in kind of leadership, is I was on a panel in Dubai, and I didn't really want to be on it because I was hungry and I was invited last minute to be on it. Didn't want to go. And I thought, oh, come on, you're in Dubai, do it. So there was a bit of, there was turmoil going on in my head. I was on this panel and it was about women in leadership. The door was open. So I listened a lot and I just added a feel in a constructive way, not hitting it with a sledgehammer. This, by the way, the women's session was the last day, the last thing on the schedule. And it was in a corridor down the back, round by the broom cupboard. But at least it happened, right? So we moved further forwards. It was on the agenda and we moved forwards. But my long story short is that the content was incredible. And at the end of the session, there was a lady who was fully covered up from Saudi. And she spoke really well, didn't know who she was. And I wanted to go over and speak to her and say, you did a great job. And I started to walk over to her. And then I thought, you're not going to want to speak to me. So I walked away. And then a little voice or a little tap on the shoulder said, you've got nothing to lose. Go and speak, and she'll either talk to you or she won't. And at least you've done your thing. So I guess my lesson is about being bold, because I went over to the lady and I knelt down on the floor next to her and was like, loved what you said. Tell me a little bit more who you are, what you do. And we talked for 7 minutes. And now I call her my 7-minute friend, because since then I've been to Saudi on many occasions, which I would never have done. We're able to talk about culture over there, culture here. And we've also together hosted the first ever women's business dinner in Saudi 2 years ago. And on that, we didn't just have fitness people. We had leaders from sport, activity, Ministry of Investment, UK. And I think that, a great learning from that was take every opportunity that comes to you. Don't be scared of saying something. And also, don't criticize or judge anything till you've seen it yourself. That was my biggest learning about my trip to Saudi. I was a bit ashamed of myself.
It's a tricky kind of, I guess there's so many different elements to what you've managed to achieve there, and even just navigating, as you said, those conversations and being brave enough to approach and push a little bit just to see if, you can make something happen. I guess one of the things that I love to observe in that, because I was obviously watching all this unfold on LinkedIn, I'm thinking, wonderful, this is amazing. And I doubt very much that Rachel's taking time to sit back and realize what a difference she's making. I think it must be good to reflect back on that 7-minute friend and actually what that's led into now. Some great learnings there for not just, female leaders, but any leader about taking opportunities. But I think one of the key things that I like about that is it's about being focused on what we can achieve together as females, as leaders, because I think one of the conversations that I am uncomfortable with having sometimes is around female development programs. Because we get asked about this all the time and we still run them. And the irony is we shouldn't have to run them anymore, but we do. Probably even more nuanced, obviously, in Saudi and places like that. But for me, we still haven't grown enough in that area. There's been improvements, and I definitely saw it in the sector that we both shared. There was definitely a disparity there still. But we're making some moves in the right direction, and some of the stuff that you've done there, just by creating that opportunity, is an example of if we all thought like that and we all made a 7-minute friend and we all, take some of our, observations away and actually went in and were a bit more curious about situations, what a difference we could make, right?
And I think by, sharing experiences, it's not a boo-hoo shared experiences, but I don't want anyone to ever, my kind of root fuel is I don't want people to feel how I felt. Yeah. And actually, when I said that out in growing through businesses, and, I've had some great male allies who've just taken care of me and they didn't know how I felt. And I'd never said how I felt. That's kind of, I take responsibility and let me share with them, because them going, oh my God, I had no idea, makes them speak out and speak up and be more kind of supportive, because, sadly there's a load of work to do. And it's not a man-woman thing. It's a meritocracy thing. Be the right person for the right role and do things properly. When you're recruiting, it's a big wide world out there. Yeah. Put it out there. Let's look for diversity of thinking, diversity of experience, and create some incredible cultures to drive businesses and drive people forwards. One of the things most recently, I've been able to connect with some great ladies in a group called The Collective. And it's not about the group, it's about the cause. And it actually came off the back of Saudi. They wanted a network, and they were like, look, Rachel, Jen, Grace, if it's not on WhatsApp, it doesn't exist. So Jen and Grace had The Collective, and so let's put the collective group on WhatsApp and have a subgroup of Rise GCC, which is Saudi, just great humans. That's it. That's the rule of engagement. And I think what I was really astounded by was in the first weekend of just going through the address book and sharing it. Over 300 women, plus 70 in the GCC, all connected and sharing great things, as in from not just fitness, not selling. It's a real community of driving change and supporting people to, again, someone said it the other day that it's about throwing the ladder down and helping other people kind of come up it and taking them on your journey.
Yeah. I love that. And there's just so much opportunity there. And I think if just the way that you are, I think you're forever looking for opportunity through people. And I'm sure there's going to be a load more groups in some shape or form are going to appear as a consequence of how you manage your human capital and how you create those conversations with people. And I think that's definitely something that I'm glad that you have started to recognize that's a superpower. I think what I'm keen to, I guess, explore with you is when you come to the retreat, you'll be looking at things like your psychometric testing that we do. And so your print profiling tool and also your attributes report. We're really excited to share that with you. I think what's made me smile the most about reading them, because you've not seen them yet, is that it just reads as you as a human. And I think it's going to be really good for you to reconnect with some of those things and realize, okay, that makes sense now, why I'm motivated in that way and how I can use that. Because what we'd really like you to do when you come off the back of the leadership retreat is re-engage with those things and think, right, I know exactly how I'm going to take those things out of my utility belt now. I mean, I guess one question to ask about that is, have you experienced stuff like that in the past? I'm sure with all those years experience in an industry, you've done sort of different testing over the years, and how do you find them?
Yeah, and I'm gonna say that first off, the content for the T2 event has been absolutely fantastic. I am massively blessed with ADHD, so I have the attention span of a gnat. So it's difficult to engage in documents or content, but I found everything that you put together is so palatable, really easy to use, and and supportive. It's making me feel intrigued about what's kind of going to come next. And yeah, over the years, I have done different tests, but was always kind of frightened of them, Tracy, because they were called a test.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you go, oh God, what am I? What am I? I remember early days did the colors, and that was, I think it's insights. And that was a really great learning experience for me to really understand insights. And it's taken time I don't think you get it on day one. You don't get it in the beginning. It's University of Life stuff to understand that. But the value of not being frightened of them, just doing them and respecting them for what they are as a barometer has been immense. I was telling you earlier before this call that, I've always dipped in and out of having coaching and realized more, in the last kind of 12 months, wanted to get things, my yin and yang wasn't yin and yanging. So I wanted to get more aligned, got myself a coach. And, with one of the assessments that they did before I started, that they wanted to run through with me in our first meeting, before the first meeting, they actually said, hang on, let's hold this off and let's talk this all through. And basically their concern was I had massive burnout, and I kind of knew I was a bit tired and getting a bit fed up with things.
Yeah.
But it actually, that stark look in the mirror was just what I needed. It's the reality check to go, actually, firstly, someone cares, right? You acknowledge it, and then it's how you deal with and understand it and stop it from happening again or look after yourself. But I think it's a long journey. And do you think, like I said to you, the stars align. Us reconnecting, this event, me looking kind of on the periphery of the sector, putting the planet to get people moving. People are the most important thing. And if you've got a great human in front of you that you've looked after kind of holistically, they will perform. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of businesses think you've got, when you look after your people, it's all snuggly wuggly and put a dartboard in the room and put milk in the fridge and make sure,
Yeah. Decent coffee, bean bags, pizzas on a Friday. Yeah, we batter us every single week. And I guess that's one of the reasons that I asked that, was because for a lot of people we work with, particularly people who are looking to come and spend some time with us, whether it's at the retreat or in any of our kind of interactions, I love what you said there about being brave enough to step into some of that insight and think, how can I use this for the greater good? Because even when people read some of the stuff that feels uncomfortable to them, it's being uncomfortable for a period of time, then using that information to go, okay, so I can unpick this and make a difference, not just to me, as your coach has said, you need to get your yin and yang back in, but how do you use that to support other people? And I think one of the biggest learnings we find here at T2 is that a lot of people have, as you said, they've gone through a process early in their career, you've put it back in a drawer, and actually it's not until later in their career they start to connect the dots on some of these things. So what's great about the retreat is for 2 days you can be completely self-decadent. There's 3 days that we do. The first day and the third day are all about learning about yourself and how you apply those things. And day 2 is actually to get you guys working together as a team to kind of unpick some of those teamship elements as well. And it gets you thinking a little bit more around how you create dynamic subordination and leverage your influence and stuff. So we're really excited to see how you take your tools that we give you. I guess what's some of the other stuff that you're really looking forward to, achieving while you're at the retreat? What's your big kind of, if I could achieve this by the end,
Nah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to meeting people I don't know. Yeah. Because you realize as well that you're caught up in your own little world, and maybe there's a massive, you have a confidence in that. I get so much out of learning from other people, and through their experiences, and seem to be very able to translate that into my space. So I'm interested in meeting other people, learning from them, and also seeing what I can contribute from my batshit crazy University of Life, and the structure as well. I think the team activities, which I think is great. So we're not going to be just in a very nice room in a very nice hotel doing nice things. I have a hallucination that we're going to be rolling our sleeves up. It will be painful, because you're taking the mirror to yourself, and it will be really funny as well, because we're going to get involved with some really good kind of outdoor team building activities.
You're going to be getting some serious MEPs in over those 3 days, whether it's in your brain or in your body. We're super excited to get we tend to find that people respond reasonably well to the psychometrics, but some of it on day one in the morning can feel very intense because if you're not ready for it or you haven't experienced this before. But as you said, by the time you kind of start to see it come to life for those 3 days, it's about what you do at the end, and we help you forward focus. But in the afternoon of day one, we do pressure rooms. We get a whole heap of people who've never met each other before to work together really, really tightly and unravel lots of different puzzles and activities. And we take some time to unpick that and work out, okay, so you approached it this way and this person did this. Like, let's talk about that, because actually that's real life and we can translate that across to all the influence that you have. Day two, when you either get on a whitewater raft or go out doing some crazy orienteering with myself and the team, again, it's dipping into humor, it's dipping into trying to build those relationships. And I think for some people, even that can be a challenge because it can be lonely at the top. And that's one thing that, you know, I get a lot from a lot of my exec coaching clients, that people think once you've made it up there, you're on the right salary band, you feel like you've learned a lot, but actually it can be quite lonely because some of the experiences you have, you can't share with your bigger network. You've got less people who really understand what you're going through. And then actually that's when some of our softer skills start to fade a little because we're not dipping into it as much. So I think actually day two is good for that. It breaks the barriers down. We're all the same ranking rate in that boat, and we're all the same ranking rate when we're out doing orienteering. Yeah. I think it really allows people to reconnect with what's important. And for us, the bit that's the loveliest in that is when we come back at day two, we do a bit of a reflection piece on how we got each other through the day. And actually, there was some tears last year. I'll be honest, I think a lot of people really found themselves again without sounding too fluffy. And when they're reaching across to someone and saying, you helped me by doing this today, something as simple as a comment that you made to keep me going, and that person recognizes that's the difference they made, makes them reconnect with what a difference they can make as a leader by just making an observation of someone on a daily basis and keeping them going. So
can I ask a question now? Can I have a go? So I was thinking that, as we've kind of been through this and looking at all the, you told me about the people, not in detail, but different people going, you've seen for this group that are coming to this session, you've kind of got under the bonnet that we don't know yet. What are you most looking forward to about that? Because I guess when you look at groups, there must be they're always going to be different, but based on what you see in this group, where the world is right now, where we're having the event, the level of interest, what are you most excited about or looking forward to?
We're very much the same. I'm all about people and the experience, but I guess from my perspective at the other side, what I'm most excited to see is I see all the underneath stuff. So I think, I know this person inside. If this is right, then I know what to expect and I know how to bring that out and I know what buttons to push. Also, when we get to pressure rooms, I know what button to press there to see, what kind of response we get. But the bit that I always get the most excited about is bringing those dynamics together. So each consultant has a group of people that they come, and we've handpicked who goes in what group to link with the consultant and the mix of the dynamics that we've got in there. And the most exciting part for me is day one. By the afternoon, we've relaxed a little and we're starting to see that dynamic form. And I don't know, it's like being a proud mum. You sit there and you just watch it all unfold and how people connect and the realizations that people have. And that mic drop moment for each person that comes out over those 3 days, it gets me excited. So I don't get up and think, oh my God, there's so much to do today. I go, oh my God, there's so much to do today. For me, that's really the best bit about this job, is that I can read a list. I can kind of know what I'm going to see, but then what I get to do and how I get to work with that is just incredible. And for the groups of people that we've got this year, we've got some absolutely brilliant dynamics. Some very high level people come in. We've also got people that are just a few that are just new into sort of C-suite positions and kind of in their first experiences. So we've put them with people that we feel will add to their experience, if you like. So I get the most excited about seeing the stuff on paper come to life. But the other thing I love the most is watching my team in action. that probably sounds a little bit far out, but I actually, as much as I'm in the mix, I like to watch how they unravel people in a good way, and how they, at the end of the 3 days, go, I've made some deep rooted connections there. And quite often those people go on to be coached by my consultants because they've enjoyed the experience so much. So for us, it's, you get in the car after those 4 days, what's 5 days for us by the time we kind of get there and get back. And it's like, silence, but elation. Like, you know, it's just our signature event.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic to hear. And you've got so much energy behind, you know, anyway. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think that it makes me really excited to do it, because every day's a school day, and sometimes, you know, you have to go, what have I learned? I like to go, what did I learn today? Or what have I shared today? And it makes me sad in our sector, in my sector, the way we talk about investing in the people. And, you know, any leaders listening or watching this, when's the last time you actually really did something for your people that wasn't a night out or bowling, that is actually about their own personal development and helping them move up the ladder or move in a direction that they want to move in?
Yeah.
And maybe you as a leader thinking outside the box, and just don't use same.
And there are some sectors as well. And I think, just reflecting on what you said there, I guess if I think back to my time in leisure, one of the things I really connected with in terms of, because I was always involved in some form of L&D element of it, as well as the kind of product element of it. I guess one of the things I always connected with was there was always investment in skills, as in how to use something, or, you know, how we can simplify process or something like that. There was very little in terms of self-development, self-awareness, or leadership development, because I don't know anybody who worked with me at any of the chains I work with, or big environments, that invested a lot of money into people being in a succession planning element and going through a process of learning how to be a great leader. It was more about progression through the ranks and the salary bands, and particularly the titles. That was a big thing. But quite honestly, if I was to kind of look on the outside now, I can't think of anybody that I work with in that industry that really did get investment in their self-awareness that was really tangible. And I don't really have that many leaders that I look from the outside back in and go, you know, they really made a difference to me, because I didn't necessarily learn the stuff that was important. I might learn some skills-based stuff, but I didn't necessarily learn how to be a leader, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's like a bit of a sweeping statement, but I think just from my own experience, leadership training wasn't even on the agenda anywhere for me.
No, and I would agree with you. Looking back, I think, you know, I was just thinking, you made me think that was sent on gratefully an Anthony Robbins course with a whole load of the club managers, and I didn't want to go. Didn't want to go.
We don't know the benefits for a start, do you?
3 days in the Excel with everybody jumping up and down and high-fiving each other. I had a job to do, a career to follow. I remember walking into the Excel, and I was a bit late. I walked in, and the whole Excel is absolutely buzzing with energy, and everybody's really excited. And I put 20 steps into the room, and I was like, I'm not doing this. And I walked straight out, and then a little voice in my head again said, you got 15 club managers here. You are the kind of boss. You've got to kind of lead from the front. And then on the back of that, Tracy, I did the entire event. I booked on every course he'd done, and then I ended up in his house in Fiji on something else. So I did the entire university. So take the leap again.
It's all about taking that leap, but I guess it does make me reflect on, you know, the energy that we put into the self-growth elements. It's not even just the leadership, it's the self-growth elements, isn't it? Like, you know, you can put a lot of investment in yourself, and for someone like yourself, you're very self-driven. You will seek out opportunities, you're curious. For other people, as you quite rightly said, maybe back early in your career, you'll be put on a course and you don't actually understand the benefits or why it's worthwhile you taking time out to go on that, and why it's important to understand how you communicate properly and all those wonderful things. And I think maybe if we spent more on the why and less on the application, then we probably get a lot more people connecting with the fact that the skills bit is that secondary element. This human stuff is actually so important. And a lot of that 50% of the energy that you have gets pushed onto people on a daily basis. And if it doesn't feel right to you, chances are it's not going to feel right to them either. So to connect with that, in the language we use, about understanding your best self and your shadow self. And I always joke about shadow self. I say shadow self can be just under the sun lounger, where there's a couple of shadowy things coming out, or you can be in the dungeon. And if you're in the dungeon and you can't see, then it's a dangerous place. So I think it's a good thing to have that level of awareness and be able to, take that and but I think you're absolutely right as well. You'll get that report, you'll understand it, but it's when you drive into the car to meet someone, or you're reflecting on something, that something will pop into your head that you'll connect with and go, that makes perfect sense now. So I'm super excited to see how you respond to that. I'm absolutely over the moon you get to join us, because when you bring that energy, I know that everyone's you're going to network with another 50 people that are going to just absolutely, want to speak to you. And the consultants are going to love working with you as well. I know they are. So we're really looking forward to you joining us at the retreat. I hope you get what you need to get from being there. I'm sure you will. And I guess one last question I had for you was, if you were to advise someone just stepping into their first leadership role now, I guess earlier you said something about, if I could just go back and just remind Rachel back then, what would be the firm piece of advice you would give them as soon as they're just going to walk in that door and take that role?
If it had to be like short and to the point, I'd go, absolutely trust yourself. Don't doubt yourself. You won't doubt if you actually believe, and that self-belief isn't an arrogance. I think women often think that their self-belief is an arrogance. Believe yourself, and never, ever, 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 ever compromise on your values and what you stand for as a human. And I think I'd been guilty of doing that, as in hoping that I could drive change myself, and just thinking, just let that one go. I'll just let that one go.
Yeah.
Don't. It's always the right time to do the right thing.
Sound advice. Thank you so much. What crazy activity do you have planned for this week? I'm interested.
So this week, I've just realised that I've booked myself into a 50-mile bike ride in 2 weeks' time. And I booked it ages ago. And then I've also just realised that I haven't been on my bike for quite some time. So I'm probably going to dust the cobwebs off my bike and get out. But I set these challenges because it's just good. It's not about thrashing myself. It's just about really intriguing about how I can learn and what I'm capable of. To throw it in, I've never run a marathon. I can't run more than 5K without aching and looking like I'm 100 years old. And then not so long ago,
did it?
Booked myself into the Riyadh Marathon and just did it because I just kept moving. And I think it's the resilience that I've learned is, one foot, what could possibly go wrong? One foot in front of the other. So trust yourselves.
So much to learn from that. So thank you for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you in a few weeks' time. And to all of you guys listening, thank you for joining us on the People Performance Podcast. We'll see you soon.